Hi, I'm Barb.
Hi, I'm Pat.
Pat and I have a lot of interesting conversations.
Yes, and we thought you might like to listen in to our podcast that we've called Coffee House Inspirations.
We hope you will enjoy our topics.
Good morning, Barb.
Good morning, Pat. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. It's a beautiful, bright, sunny day, and I'm just happy to be here and chatting with you.
Me too. Me too. I agree. It is a beautiful day, and we're going to have a couple more coming up.
And by the way, congratulations on your vaccination.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
You had just very little effect, very little reaction.
Yeah, just the sore arm, and it actually was quite sore. But then by yesterday, it was just about gone.
Yeah. So that's great. So we're day 15 of our first vaccination. So we're kind of in that range where we're pretty vaccinated. Which
yeah, because I think you're after the 2 weeks, it's about 90%.
That seems to be what the research indicates, because I was looking at, you had mentioned that, and I was looking online, and that seems to be pretty much across the board what's agreed on. So
yeah.
Anyway, so we have decided today to have a look at affirmations.
Yes, we have.
And we had done a little bit of chatting beforehand, and we were kind of laughing about the bum rap that affirmations have gotten, because, they've been trivialized a little bit without understanding really where they came from and what some of the research says about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought we might just talk a little bit in the beginning about sort of defining what affirmations are, and having a little bit of a look at the history of them. And I did some poking around, and I interestingly found that the very first person to talk about affirmations, before we even define what they are, was a French man who was a pharmacist and a psychologist.
Oh, really?
So he must have been a busy boy. And in 1901, he was the first known person to talk about affirmations, but he called them self-suggestions.
Okay, that makes sense.
And in the world of psychology, that self-suggestion kind of a definition carried through for quite some time. And I think up until such time as affirmations became more mainstream, they were used in the psychology world called self-suggestions, is what they were called. So this guy's name was Emile Coué. He was French, and he came up with the affirmation that was just a general affirmation that he used for people that he met in his practice that were really struggling with things. And it was this: every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. and that affirmation, interestingly enough, as I was looking at this, has carried itself through time as a general affirmation. And then, of course, as psychology became more interested in the way people talk to themselves and the way they define themselves, it became more specific to the issue that people were concerned about. So if you had a lot, for example, if you had a lot of sort of negative self-talk around a certain thing, and the chat about it and the examination of it wasn't doing things, they started looking at how do you change the mind. And that was really where cognitive therapy really came from too.
Right.
So basically affirmations are a positive statement that can help you with a challenging belief about yourself, or something that you have believed that has been self-sabotaging.
Mm-hmm.
So that you've tried to do certain things, it doesn't seem to work, and the basis of it is that you have some very negative messaging that you're presenting yourself with, and that if you repeat it often enough, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I'm too old, I'm too, whatever. and you repeat that often enough, that becomes a part of your, expression, becomes a part of reality, because you're really repeating that to yourself, not really understanding what an affirmation can do. And that kind of negative self-talk becomes an affirmation. And then it is, it has it presents itself in your world. It's a sort of, they call it a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes from the conscious right deep down into the subconscious, where it's actually lurking in there and you're not even really aware of it.
Yes, and that's exactly right. And the subconscious, as we've talked about that in the podcast that we did on dreams, which is our podcast number 6. We talked about that in tapping. Talked about that in the podcast we did on anxiety attacks, that once something goes into the subconscious, it then is sitting there as the engine that produces the results of what you put in through the conscious mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And interestingly enough, the subconscious mind doesn't ask questions. It just takes what the conscious mind believes to be true and accepts it as such, and then enacts it.
Yes.
And becomes part of our experience.
Yeah. Well, this quote from Neville Goddard, his little book "Feeling is the Secret." It says the conscious mind generates ideas and impresses these ideas on the subconscious. Then the subconscious receives the ideas and gives form and expression to them.
Yeah. So that would say that the two things that are really important is, number one, to be, what are we inputting? Program in a computer, you input the data, press send, or you just build the program, and then the program just takes over and handles whatever your programming was, and that's what you get out.
That's an excellent way to put, like, an excellent analogy, Pat. Like that really makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
That's a good comparison. Yeah, that's a really good comparison.
So one of the things that I read too is that affirmations, it says this is from a piece of research that I did in psychology, one of the psychology journals. Affirmations have been used to successfully treat people with low self-esteem, depression, and other mental conditions, and have shown that to stimulate areas in our brain that make us more likely to affect positive change in regard to our health and well-being. And they went on to talk about even research that's been done, studying people in a case study. They put say 40 people in a study, 20 are using affirmations and 20 are not. And then they look at the brainwave activity and discover, lo and behold, I'll just read this because I thought this was really fascinating. This is a 2016 research. And the researchers wanted to reveal whether there is any underlying neural mechanism, any brain activity associated with affirmations.
Okay.
And they came up with this, is that the results confirmed, and they were using something called an fMRI, which is like an MRI that studies brain activity. Results confirmed that there are several neural pathways whose activation increases whenever we receive affirmations. These brain regions are also responsible for processing self-related information and values, confirming that affirmations are all about affirming our positive identities.
So is it just the positive affirmations then are you talking about?
The positive affirmations were the ones that were creating new neural pathways.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of interesting because because when you trivialize something like affirmations, because it was this idea of stand in front of the mirror and tell the mirror how beautiful you are and everything's going to be okay, or you have basically no money and you go, so I'm now affirming to have gobs of money running through my bank account and all that sort of stuff. And so we were talking about this. We want to take a look at the way that affirmations have been trivialized to understand that they are a real useful tool if they're used properly.
Right.
And according to what the, to what the experience of people has been, what the research has said, and of course, what our own experiences have been. So, it sort of begins with, looking at something in your life that you would like to change. And it could be something like, maybe you're not entirely happy with your weight, or you are having some difficulty in a relationship. A lot of people, use affirmations with difficult work situations. And so there's any number of situations that are occurring. You just pick one. And what I always suggest is don't pick the biggest one. Don't pick the one that's dogged you for the last 40 years of your life, because you need to learn how to use the affirmations in a way that works for you, so that you don't set yourself up to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So don't you think if you take something like just the hugest darn thing you can think of, and you think, well, okay, I'll just do some affirmations and I'm going to sit and watch for that to just magically change. And it's not quite like that, is it?
Yeah, and it's almost like if you're going to do it that way, it's almost like you really don't believe it in the first place.
Yes, and that's one of the things that I was reading about is that you also have to have a good look inside and say, do I actually believe that's possible?
Mm-hmm.
And if you find a place that you actually have found a place that you think, well, I don't know if I really believe that or not, like you say, you don't actually believe it, then you've got some more work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to kind of look at that, because if you think something that you really want is not possible, then something has entered your subconscious mind from some messaging from the conscious mind, whether it was your family, your community, your culture, your school, or whatever it was. And it has become part of the operating system that has been programmed.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's just programmed that way, you believe it's true. And it's not true. And so you have to kind of find ways to dig at the belief system so that you can actually build an affirmation on changing the belief system.
Right.
And sometimes it could be some work, and in like our last podcast when we talked about tapping, sometimes it could be just tapping out that belief system that is not working. So there's a lot of ways to get at it.
So yeah, so if you have a belief system that is, pretty rooted, pretty deep, how is an affirmation going to change that? Is it the repetition? I know that the feeling is probably the most important thing behind the affirmation for it to almost like to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Like you actually do have to feel it and believe it. But how do you change a deep-seated belief through an affirmation?
Well, I think that's a core question to how you can approach those things, because you first have to loosen up the idea of the finite kind of truth of what you believe about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And to build an affirmation around that says something like this: I'm learning to understand that my beliefs aren't necessarily true.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Because, you and I are both kind of students of Abraham, and Abraham always says, a belief is nothing more than a story we tell ourselves over and over and over again.
That's right.
It's not, it can come from, especially a lot of these things come from our parents. So, or our grandparents or our community or our friends or whatever. And because we've repeated something over and over, like, I'm not smart enough to do that, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody says, well, you're not, I don't know if you're smart enough to do that. That might not be the path you want to take. This is kind of thing. And then you hear that often enough, and it's in your conscious mind, and you're believing it, and it's making you feel bad and feel kind of upset and defeated. And that's the feeling that enters the subconscious.
It's the fuel, really, isn't it?
It's the fuel. And once that belief with that feeling enters the subconscious, then that's what'll act out. You'll find you'll run up and up to situations where you can't figure something out, or whether, you walk away from something because you think it's greater than your capacity to handle. You walk away from it, and it's just a belief that landed in your subconscious. So one of the things that with affirmations also is that you write them in the present tense. You wouldn't say, I'm thinking about maybe doing that. And the message that you're giving to yourself and your subconscious is that this is nowhere near happening. The subconscious just believes whatever you give it.
Well, that's true. It's true.
You see, I think I'll be working on this maybe later, and here's what I want it to look like. And your subconscious goes, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about that right now.
Yeah. The subconscious in this book, again, the subconscious does not originate ideas, but accepts as true those which the conscious mind feels to be true.
Yes. And it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
If your conscious mind says that, your subconscious goes, okay, well, all right, you're the boss. So when you write the affirmation in the present tense, then it becomes an active statement, an active affirmation, and your subconscious is always listening in. And so if that statement that is made is in the present tense, the subconscious has already got an ear to the wind. What's this?
It's like a student.
Yeah.
Like a teacher and a student almost.
And the student happens to have all the power. But anyway, let's not worry about that.
Yeah.
So you write and speak your affirmation as if it's already happening.
Okay.
And this helps you to believe that the statement is true right now. For instance, I am well prepared and well rehearsed, and I can give a great presentation. Would be a great affirmation if you feel nervous about speaking in front of people. So you take that affirmation as though it were already done. I'm well prepared and I'm well rehearsed, and I can give a great presentation. So then with that, what is the feeling that comes with that? Because the feeling, like you said, is the fuel. If you want that affirmation to reach the place you're trying to get it to, which is the subconscious, so that it believes it and it can act it out, you have to present it with some kind of feeling. And you could be excited about, wow, I'm kind of looking forward. I wish I wasn't so frightened. I'm looking forward to that presentation. It's going to be great. I can see myself doing it.
So visualization is also really important.
Really important, because visualization kind of gives you another shot of fuel with the feeling. Because when you can see something in a positive light, you get a new level of kind of excitement about it, where I can see myself doing the presentation. I feel very kind of confident, and you're seeing yourself confident already. You're building that bridge from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, once it receives that information, believes it.
Yes. And especially if the feeling is behind it. And like you said, if you look at it with say some excitement, if you're excited about, I mean, that would be quite a pronounced feeling. If you see yourself as excited giving this presentation, and you start feeling that feeling, that's really going to help push it forward.
Yes. So there, I think that what the agreement is, and most of the things that we've read and our experiences have been to affirm this, is that affirmations are really most effective when you use them alongside other strategies, and visualization is a perfect one. Some people use them, along with goal setting. If you've got one particular thing that you want to get accomplished. And you've got the goal is part of the driving force. And then the affirmations are really to enforce the positive aspects of getting that done and seeing yourself do it and really going there as though it's already happened.
Right.
And once you're feeling and you're visualizing that it's already happened, the subconscious goes, oh, okay, let's get on this. Let's get things happening here. And it's not magic. It's just the physiology of the brain and the biology of the brain, what happens in the body and what happens to our experience as we open up our thoughts and change the negativity that shuts everything down.
Yes. And I think that the point that you brought up about the tapping is also a tool to, to go along with this is really beneficial.
Yes.
That could really help a lot.
Yes. And I think people get a little bit scared off with visualizing because some people are better at it than others. But, in fact, you visualize, every day, or, you could practice visualizing. One of the things that I always think about is that if you were to close your eyes and just imagine your living room and imagine walking through your living room and looking through everything that's placed there and everything that, you relate to or that is there, and you do a full 360 of your living room. And then you tell me you can't visualize.
Oh, okay.
Because we are visualizing all the time.
Yeah.
When we're thinking about doing something, we often have a visual of what we're doing before. And even if it's in the negative, that's where you get people will really start talking about it when you're thinking about negative things. You've got a whole visual program going on there too. But remember that program in the negative fashion is also being sent to the subconscious. And the subconscious is saying, oh, you want to be stuck here without a job? Fine, I can do that. I know how to do that. Or you don't trust your car? I can fix that. I'll show you how to not trust a car or something.
I have that thought all the time. Oops.
But it's like house cleaning. Like you go into those places where you might not have recognized that at some point until you realize the power of your creative mind. It is more than you could imagine. Mm-hmm. And that's part of why affirmations are so important, because it opens up a logical, tried and true, researched way to change your experience. Because we're so used to living in the cycle of the negativity that we rarely even recognize how subtle it is. But that's what you're talking to your subconscious about.
So what would you suggest the process be if somebody wanted to just, like you said, start small, pick something small? And so what would the process be? Would it be like what you read and look at yourself in the mirror and just repeat it over and over and over again until some feeling comes into it? Or what would the process be to start?
Well, I think that first of all, stay out of the mirror for a while.
Okay, so stay out of the mirror?
Not for any other reason other than I think that we tend to go to the things that we've heard about or that people have talked about, and they might not be the most helpful because you have to believe the thing you're working on. You have to believe the possibility of it. So if you go into the mirror and say, okay, like we're of an age where you go, I want this face to be with no wrinkles, and bland. But in your heart of hearts, that's not going to be a worthy affirmation in the sense of coming to the mirror the next day or so and, oh Jesus, look, I'm 20 again.
Wouldn't that be nice?
You have to really be in your own sort of place of of just not, I wouldn't say reality, because reality is kind of contrived by the conscious mind too, but to be in the realm of possibility. And we all know what that means. I mean, we all know when we're BSing ourselves and saying, well, I'm gonna, I'm 180 pounds and by the weekend I'm going to be 150.
Yeah,
Like something like that. Like you really have to use your adult brain to construct something that is going to be an achievable affirmation that can create a new situation. So that's a big piece of it. So let's just say you were somebody who hadn't been exercising regularly, and you have an affirmation that says, I am going to, no, not you're going to, that's my bad. I am exercising and feeling more comfortable and strong. Yet you haven't done anything.
okay.
And so now you're starting to enter that affirmation into your computer.
Conscious, right?
Conscious mind.
Yeah.
And I am exercising, getting more comfortable with exercising, however you want to put it, improving my physical well-being, and I feel much stronger. So that is a reasonable affirmation. So then where does the feeling come from? Well, the feeling comes from maybe imagining yourself walking outside, or imagining yourself taking a bicycle ride, or imagining possibly looking in the mirror and going, wow, I really feel like I'm looking a little different than I was before. And to use that as the kind of the fuel with the feeling, that when the subconscious is accepting that this is what you're doing, you're almost building an impulse to do it.
So that's that I was going to ask you that. So while you're doing the affirmation, are you actually doing that thing, or are you waiting for the affirmation to kind of kick in?
Hopefully both.
Okay.
The impulse of it will start you doing something, but the affirmation will create an impulse that's greater than what you've had. Because once the subconscious mind accepts that this is what you're doing, then the flow is on. The feeling has come through. The subconscious mind goes, oh, we're exercising. Whoa, this is, and starts producing the kind of energy and the kind of impulse, and sometimes laying out a situation for you where it's very easy to do that. And so, it's opening the communication between the conscious and the subconscious mind in a way that you would choose.
Okay.
Not that you don't choose through negativity, but negativity is something where you feel stuck and you don't feel like you're moving anywhere, and you don't really understand the creative process in the mind. So you think this is all coming from the outside.
Right.
And this is happening. Well, there are things happening from the outside, but it's only reflecting what's happening on the inside.
Right. Yeah. So the affirmations that, like, say, let's give an example, that Louise Hay, and she was big on affirmations. So if the repeating of an affirmation over and over and over again before you have the feeling, will that eventually create the feeling, do you believe?
Not necessarily. It really depends on how believable it is to you.
Okay.
And I think that if you're just saying an affirmation over and over and over again, and it's quite unbelievable to you, it will just be white noise. It won't go anywhere.
Okay.
But when you understand that maybe you don't have some feeling about this affirmation, then your next step is to why doesn't this bring me some excitement? Why doesn't this bring me some anticipation of moving? What is going on here? And when you start to look at something like that, I believe that you will always uncover something that tells you are not able to do that. Oh, that's not for you. Lots of people can do that, but you can't. And, you've always been like that, or blah, blah, blah. So you an entire kind of conversation that you would continually have with yourself. That is the reason that you're stuck in this one place of just saying this affirmation over and over again, and nothing is happening.
Right.
nothing is happening, something else is going on, and it's time to kind of have a look at this. Why am I not excited about it? Well, I think partly because I don't really believe I can do that. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking to yourself now. Oh, is that right? Well, why is that? Well, my uncle said that I reminded him of his sister and she never did anything. And I guess he knew me, or, stuff like this that could come across as a conversation from somewhere, but you haven't put it together that when somebody said something to you, you believed it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you believed it, your subconscious said, okay, let's get that going.
Yeah.
Let's find an experience of that. Let's find all of the things that need to be in place for you to have an experience like that. And there it goes. So,
let's make it true. Yeah, let's make it true.
Yeah. And then it will express in your life, and then you'll have this thought of, boy, that really is true. I can't really do that.
It just like reaffirms it.
Yes. And you believe it because it looks like it's true, but where it came from is not true.
Right.
So I was just also looking at, there's a lot of research in this, which I hadn't uncovered before, because I love affirmations, and what I've learned about affirmations is they're a really good starting point to dig out all the crud, that.
No, so do you do them? Do you do affirmations on a regular basis or semi-regular basis? You do, eh?
And I do that when I can identify something that's going on in my mind that is not helpful. I'm telling myself something, and it's just not useful. And so what is the point of that? If we understand the creative process, and we understand that what our conscious mind is saying over and over and over with this, oh, poor me kind of feelings, because that's a deep feeling, and the subconscious is looking at that and go, yeah, you're in a mess here. I got to find some things that show you that this is true, because it's just doing what you've asked it to do. And so there will always be something that is in what you would consider the world outside that is showing you exactly what you sent out there to believe.
Right.
So here's a couple of things that came up for, that were in various studies that came through on this idea of self-affirmations that have been shown to decrease health deteriorating stress. This was a study done in 2015. Self-affirmations have been used effectively in interventions that led people to increase their physical behavior. 2014 study. They may help us to perceive otherwise threatening messages with less resistance, including interventions. This was a 2012 study. So there's a lot of research now, because reframing your belief system is a cognitive exercise.
Right.
You understand that the messages that you're holding on to and running as a program are not useful, so change them.
Mm-hmm. So that cognitive behavioral therapy really is in a way doing affirmations and taking a look at what self-talk you do have going on in the brain, and to consciously change it. So it's kind of all in the same arena, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think pretty much everything we're talking about is in the same arena, because
I do too. Yeah.
it always comes down to self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
For doing sort of an honest evaluation of what is it that you would like to change, and then doing the work that says, how can I change this? Go look around. What has worked? What hasn't worked? What is kind of resonating with me? Because you'll always, I can do that. Because I also found a little list of the reasons why affirmations might not work. It's not some of the stuff that we're talking about, but I think it's worth mentioning.
Okay.
And the first thing is what we were talking about, that if you have no emotion when saying your affirmations, they're not going to work.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
Your subconscious has nothing to go on. It's just all it hears is it's noise.
White noise.
White noise. Also is are you present to what you're saying and how you're reacting? So that's what you were talking about the repetition. Is it enough to just say blah blah blah?
Yeah.
And when you're present to what you're saying, you're also staying present to the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so not just having that stay in the circuitry of the brain, but bringing it into the emotion so that there's some notice of it. And then the other one is just saying them for a few days and a few times just won't cut it. And that sometimes it has to be a week, or sometimes it has to be a month. You don't know how quickly that process changes. You'll start to feel it for sure. You'll start to see things, you'll start to feel it, but it doesn't just happen with just a few affirmations.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing, which was what we talked about, is if your affirmations are so far from your current situation that you can't possibly believe it.
Yeah. Because there has to be some measure of belief.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. And so that's what I was wondering. If the belief isn't there, is the repetition of doing an affirmation going to create that belief eventually?
That's where I think that's where you absolutely have to look at the belief, and you have to chisel away at it. Like, let's just say you have a belief that say you're extremely overweight, and you want to be, let's say you want to be 50 pounds less than what you are existing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be enough to just because going from 0 to 50 is a lot. But you would have to find something, and you thought, I'll never get that. I've tried this before. I can't get there. I don't know what to do. What is around, but you have this desire. And so your affirmation could be, I am actively seeking effective ways to lose weight.
Okay.
So you're not fighting against anything. You're not saying you can do this. You're not saying when you can do this. You're just saying, I'm actively seeking ways to do whatever it is you're asking yourself to do. So
Okay, that sounds right.
take some of the distance out, and then something happens, and you've discovered some way that you're changing your eating patterns, and slowly your belief about that changes a little bit, so you can go to the next step. I see myself 10 pounds lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't said the thing that you don't believe, but you're chipping away at it. And you will always know, because you know why? You'll always know when you believe what you're telling yourself.
That's true.
And the minute you believe it, your feelings are kicking in. And the subconscious then has got the ear to the wind. Something is, okay, this sounds.
Yeah, that's true. And we were discussing this before the podcast. For myself, I have a couple of examples of where I've been back and forth about something. Should I buy this? Shouldn't I? For me, for instance, it was a car. Can I get it? Can I get the financing? Can I? And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to at least try. Whether I get it or not, I'm at least going to put my foot forward and get moving here. And as soon as I made that decision and got off of the fence and back and off of the wishy-washy back and forth, it happened.
Yes.
And it came to fruition.
And you had the sense of it was doable.
I had the sense that it was doable.
You didn't know how, but
exactly.
Your feeling changed. And the subconscious goes, oh, got some work to do here.
That's right. And that's actually a good point too, Pat, is that that you don't know how. You don't know how this might happen, but you believe that it can, and just kind of get all that micromanaging in the middle out of the way.
Brilliant point. That is a brilliant point, because we don't know how it presents. And that's where we also run into some trouble too, because if we think we know, and that isn't how it presents itself, we miss what does.
Yeah.
Do you remember, that story about that man that was on the roof? It was a flood, and the man was on the roof, and he was praying to God to help him get off the roof, get me out of this mess. I'm in, and this boat goes by and said, you need any help? And he goes, no, God's going to get me off here. And anyway, that's how that works.
Yeah, your help was there, but not in the way that you had imagined it, and so it kind of just passed you by.
That's exactly right. It is just then nothing else came, and you go, oh Jesus, maybe that was the help I was gonna.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a really good point, Barb, that you just don't know how it's going to come. And when you predetermine how things will change, you often miss the next step, because everything comes next step.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that is a good point.
I think in the in the long run, it's that you have to choose something that's not working for you in your life. Yeah, always do a little research too, and what are the better ways, some of the more productive ways to do this. Frame something that's in the present time so that the subconscious doesn't ignore it and think you're just going to get to it some other day. Phrase it in the present time. Find a feeling place where you can start to build some feeling on this, that's get some excitement or some believability. Don't make it a longing, because that's kind of a negative thing, is I'll never get.
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point. Is the wanting is different than like the believing, because you're right. The wanting is the longing, and this may never happen kind of thing.
Yeah. And then just, and just make a commitment to do this for a period of time, knowing that when the process is working and completing, that you're going to see the results. Stay in that positive place, because billions of people can't be wrong all the time. And so,
Yeah.
err on the side of an improvement in your life. And the safest place you can ever be is in the unhappiness of no change.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And lots of people choose that. Lots of people will just choose to be unhappy because they are afraid they can't do the thing. And you can. It's a incremental change. Starts with something smaller. Show yourself that you're completely capable, and it works.
Okay. Well, I mean, like you said, billions of people can't be wrong. I mean, a lot of these motivational speakers and athletes, and they all use positive affirmations, and they say they work. So,
well, sports psychology uses them all the time.
Yeah.
Teaches visualization, teaches affirmations, teaches the sort of seeing the end game, the end result, seeing yourself in the end result, that sort of thing. It's a well-researched psychological process that people don't use because they're afraid they can't do it, or they don't want to disappoint themselves, and the other thing I would say, don't tell anybody you're doing it, because you're going to have naysayers around every corner.
Such a good idea. That is such good advice. Yeah.
I'm trying to do this. You go, what? You haven't done that your whole life. Why are you trying now?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you'll shut up and watch me. I'll show you.
Do you have any recommendations for information, Pat, like books or anything like that?
I would say go on, if you're really gonna go and look at some things, just go on sites that are reputable. They are either psychology sites or health sites. Don't go on, forums where people are complaining about affirmations or anything like that.
Yeah.
If you follow a really basic sort of formula, basic recipe, and that you understand that the conscious mind is the giver of information to the subconscious mind. Be careful what you're giving it.
Right.
If you want to change something, change the messaging. And you change the messages by using the affirmations and using a process where you can build a kind of an emotional truth for yourself that the subconscious mind now believes. Watch what happens. It's pretty amazing.
Just give yourself an affirmation that you're going to come across the information that you need to do this.
Yes.
There's a good affirmation right there to begin with.
Well, that's exactly right. You build, because that's like, building your first step of a positive invitation.
Right.
Yourself, because, we're not here to be unhappy and miserable and suffer.
We aren't. Hey, Before we go, I wanted to ask you, and I know we didn't talk about this before the podcast started, but is there anything that you have watched or read in this past little while?
Yes. Well, you see, this is not along the lines of, you know, what you might think, but I'm a big fan of a form of entertainment called Nordic noir.
Nordic noir?
And it's about, you know, it's usually they're Swedish or Norwegian or Icelandic or, you know, whatever. And there's a detective involved, you know, because I love this kind of stuff. And I have found it's a series on Netflix called Trapped.
Oh, you've mentioned that to me.
And
Yeah.
I'll just say that. And if you ever want to dive into a little Nordic noir, man, that's a good one.
Okay.
I think I ran through the whole series in 2 nights and I was sleep deprived.
Now, just so that people know, I do believe that has subtitles, right? Or does it?
Yeah, I think some are dubbed and some have subtitles. I think this one might have. I can't remember, because, you know, subtitles don't bother me, because I once I get into the cadence of the subtitle and the action, I kind of lose the thought of it. But check it out, either one. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great. Well, that was fun.
Mm-hmm. As usual.
And you know, in our chats that follow, we'll find another topic.
Yes. We don't know what next week will be yet.
We might even try some affirmations.
We might do that.
Okay, Barb. I'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye, Pat.
Bye, Barb.